Hello. So, since I'm very new into YouTube, I think I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit before going any further. So, my name is the Treble Guy, as you can see from the YouTube channel name. I do software engineering as my hobby, and I'm going to pursue a degree in software engineering actually, as well as in my university. However, the program actually starts in one more month, and currently I'm actually in a holiday, which gives me enough time to actually just get myself a head start and study. I decided to went to the university and ask some of the seniors there what they were going to learn, and they mentioned that the first year or the first semester, I forgot, but it will be spent on learning C. So, as any bored person will do, I decided to just hop on and learn C by myself to give myself a head start. And I do that by watch a lot of online tutorials here and there, as well as doing some small projects throughout the tutorial while watching other people code. It has been approximately 2 weeks and I have quite learned a lot actually, but I always felt like it wasn't enough because I didn't really make myself projects and I just watch other people code. So I decided that I was going to make a project where I'm going to code it by myself with only a bit of help, such as AI or maybe source code that I can find. I just want to mention that I only use AI just because sometimes I get a random error and I also always thought that it was correct. And it's so hard trying to debug it because I had to go over the code many times, which I did, and it took like several minutes or even sometimes half an hour or even an hour to just fix the code. So I just use AI just to make the process a lot more efficient. But don't worry, I still learn and read what the AI suggests and everything just to make myself a bit better. Now, back to the topic. Finding projects in C actually took a while for me because I didn't know what project I wanted to make. But I did come across a website called Top 25 C Projects with Source Code for 2025. And it's by Geeks for Geeks. And after scrolling for a bit, I decided that I was going to make a snake and ladder game and tic-tac-toe. Now, some of you might be confused because the title of the video says tic-tac-toe, not snake and ladders. But here's the thing. I finished the snake and ladders game first during the time that I wasn't thinking of recording any of my coding progress. So I just recorded the tic-tac-toe one. Yeah. Anyway, please disclaimer that I'm not actually a professional at coding this. I just simply want to share my journey of how I make this project, which hopefully inspires you to do so. If you do enjoy these kind of videos, you can, like and give me a sub to help me motivate myself. And regardless, if you do have any comments or any note that you want to share to me because my code is absolute garbage, you will see later, you can always write it out in the comment section below and I'll for sure read it so I can become better at coding. And now, let's try to code this tic-tac-toe game. This section is going to be a bit technical, but I do want to let people know who doesn't really know much about coding or C to follow along. So first, obviously, I created a file called tic-tac-toe.c and I started to include the main header file of hashtag include and the stuff. And the int main function, as you can see. A bit of a background story, I legit forgot to put return 0 at the end of the code, so please do that if you're following me. I just printed the title of the game, the person who made it, which is me, and after that, that's done. I wanted the game to have two options, which are going to be the two players mode, where two people fight each other in the game, and the computer mode, where only one person just fights the computer in the game. In this case, I use a function called user mode, which takes a variable of choice so that it does not clutter the main function, and it will be sent back to the other function you'll see later. I added a do while loop too, so it will repeat the block of code to force the player to pick either 1 or 2, and the switch statement to remind the player that they have selected that mode. As you can see here, if the user enters 1, it will select the 2 players mode, and if it enters 2, it will enter the computer mode, and if it is 3 or any other number, it will be forced to repeat the block of code. Anyways, the user mode function is done, and let's make them pick a name of their desire. In the main function, I declare 2 variables of name1 and name2 for both users respectively. I made a function called usernameSelect, which uses the pointer of name1 and name2 respectively because it will be declared several times in the future functions. So this one is also pretty straightforward, but I did forget to use choice as the parameter of my function. So my bad. The way this code works is basically the if statement will check if the user picks 1 or 2. If they pick 1, that means there are 2 names that the user must write, which is going to be name 1 and name 2. But if they pick 2, that means the user just needs to write 1 name for themselves, which is going to be name 1, and name 2 will automatically be computer. A funny thing that happened here is that I tried to name name2 with the following line of code, which works in JavaScript but does not actually work here. You can see here that I tried to look up for answers with AI, and I legit forgot about this function, but you need this strcpy method and a header of #include_string_h, and now it works. Next, I wanted to make sure the player knows how to select the board, and I decided to make a little instruction function called show instruction. Wait, no, print instructions? Bro, what am I doing? Anywho, I'm just going to time-lapse this because in the end, it is just a simple printf function that tells the user what to do. But I want to highlight this section real quick. I wanted to give a pause for 5 seconds so the user can read. As you can see in the video, I tried to, but I didn't know how, and I thought when I watched the tutorial it is wait 5000 lamau. But if you want to make a 5 seconds delay, you need to include these 2 headers. The first is going to be the time_h header, and the second is going to be windows.h if you are using a Windows operating system. And to add the delay, simply use sleep 5000, not wait. But I want to point out that if you are using Linux or Mac OS, you use that, I don't know how to pronounce it, and then you use the sleep 5 for 5 seconds of delay. Okay, that's it. Okay, so this part is going to be blurred because I'm thinking of explaining how this works while I code, but then I keep changing the code a lot, so I'm just going to explain how this works because I just want to make it simple for you guys. Okay, that's it. Let's just continue. Moving on, I needed to print the board of the tic-tac-toe game, and I did so by first making an array of board with 0. If you visualize it, it looks like this, which looks similar to an actual 3x3 tic-tac-toe board, and 0 will represent an empty square in this case. The game will ask the user which square the player wants to pick. The input will be a number between 1 until 9. As you can see here, I will be the rows and J will be the columns. To check if the board is empty, the input must be converted into I and J. For example, the player 1 picks square number 5. That means I will be 1 and J will be 1 because an array in C starts with 0. If that specific element is equal to 0, that means the square is unoccupied and it allows the user to pick that spot. However, in this else code, if the specified element is not equal to 0, which could mean 1 or 2, the board is occupied and therefore the player must choose another square. If you see here, I added another if statement, and that's because the user can actually pick a number more than 9 and less than 1, which is out of our range. If the user decided to pick that number and enter it, there isn't a place to put it because it is unavailable. Instead, we needed the player to pick a number by giving this following line of statement. Now, even after that, the player can actually still bypass this because the if statement does not repeat itself. Instead, we can use a do-while loop. This will ensure that this block of code will repeat itself if the input is less than 1 or greater than 9, or if the square that the player chooses is occupied, which means they must pick another square. Once the player chooses an unoccupied square, the board ij will be changed into either 1 or 2 depending whose turn is it. The roll variable keeps track of which turn is it and it alternates between 1 or 2. I also added another array of actual board. Now you might be thinking, what's the point of adding this? But this is going to be important because it will keep track of x and 0, which will be used to display the board instead of using the board array because those are just filled with 1 and 2 and zeros. I considered this to be pretty inefficient, but either way, I didn't know how to make it more efficient, so yeah. The way this works is that the actual board ij is going to equal this expression over here, which is called ternary operator. I don't know how to pronounce it, but this is basically just an if statement. For example, if the roll is 1, the actual board in position I in position j is going to be x. So if player 1 picks 5, actual board 1 is going to equal to x. And now we have a working printing board. We have a working mode selection, name selection, instruction, and the board is able to print and update the tic-tac-toe board. So now, we need to determine how a winner is declared. First, I created a steps variable, which basically just keeps track of how many moves have been made in the game. After a move is made, the steps variable will be incremented by 1. If steps is equal to 9, then it will exit a do-while loop here, which basically just repeatedly asks which square the player wants. Next, we need the game to know if someone actually wins. To win tic-tac-toe, the first player must get 3 of their marks in a row, whether it is horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. It's quite simple, and this part is pretty fun to code actually. First, we are going to declare a function of findWinner, which basically just finds the winner in the current state of the board. We are also going to declare a winnerFound variable, which is basically a boolean of true or false. To check rows of marks horizontally, we need to use a for loop, which checks for row 0, row 1, and also row 2. After that, for each row, there will be an if statement, which basically says if board I0 is equal to board I1 and board I1 is equal to board I2. If it is, then there is a row of marks horizontally and a winner is found. But hold on, you can't exactly declare it that easily because in the beginning of the game, the board array is going to be filled with zeros, and since the row is filled with zeros too, technically there is a winner and the game ends. So we need to use another if statement to check if the square that we are checking has 1 or 2. If there is, then we can declare a winner. This basic principle will also apply to check the rows of marks vertically. another loop which checks for column 0, 1, and 2, and for each column, there will be an if statement which basically checks if board OJ is equal to board 1J and board 1J is equal to board 2J. If it is, then check if one of the square has 1 or 2, and if there is, then the winner is found. Diagonal is going to be a bit different because there are actually two ways to form a diagonal straight. The first is going to be from top left to bottom right, and the second is going to be from bottom left to top right. Let's go over them one by one. The if statement is checking whether board 00 is equal to board 11 and board 11 is equal to board 22, or whether board 20 is equal to board 11 and board 11 is equal to 02. I already visualized it in the screen, so if you might be confused, you can pause it for a second. But there is going to be an OR operator. Why is it there? So just one of the diagonals need to apply to consider it as a win. If it is true though, check if the board 11 is equal to 1 or 2 because both diagonals actually intersect the middle board. If it is, then we can declare a winner and the winner is found. After adding the code and stuff, we finally got a working tic-tac-toe game. But you still remember that in the user selection mode, they can actually pick whether they want to pick the 2 players mode and the computer mode. Well, the 2 players mode works, but the computer, well, I haven't implemented any computer moves because we need to actually implement them by themselves, which is going to be difficult. But for now, the 2 players mode works and now I can sleep. Computer mode can be easy to code, but it also can be troublesome too because you do not want the computer to just pick randomly any number that's available and call it a day. Well, I can do that, but I feel like it will make a less interesting video and it will make the IQ of the computer to be so dumb. So we need to make a smart algorithm to let the computer decide what move is going to make the win. I mentioned in the video that I used a website called Geeks for Geeks, and they do have a source code for the tic-tac-toe game, and to be honest, I use it a lot as a reference. However, when I tried to understand the computer algorithm function, I got so confused because I didn't know what this all means, and reading it is not easy, especially for a beginner like me. However, I keep spawning something called minimax, and I felt like this is something that I had to Google because really, I don't know what this means, and turns out it actually is an algorithm for computer decision making. So I searched on YouTube to figure out how it works and stuff. Now, I can only explain at the basic level because I myself find this difficult to master as a beginner, but you eventually are going to learn this for artificial intelligence and also game theory. So here's how a computer can decide the next tic-tac-toe move. Let's say this is the current state of the board and it is X's turn to make their move. For this context, X is trying to find the best optimal move. What this algorithm does is that it will check for all possible moves and outcomes for them to win, in this case X. As you can see here, X has 3 options, either square number 3, square number 4, and also square number 6. Then after that, it is O's turn, and these are the option, and so on, as it keeps alternating between X and O. As you can see here, the game ends in either an X win, an O win, if not a tie. After figuring out all the outcomes that gonna happen, how does X find what move they need to pick? Well, we can score these terminal states, which is basically just the condition when the game actually ends. Terminal states in tic-tac-toe consist of 3, since you can either win, you can lose, if not you can draw. In this context, X wants to win. So we can score each terminal state with +1 for a win for X, -1 for a win for O, and 0 for a tie. From this game tree, we can score each of the terminal states with their corresponding score. 4 of these only result with one outcome, so we can grab the scores up. But comes the question, which score does X need to pick? X in this case is going to be the maximizing player because their goal is to get the highest score possible, while O is the minimizing player because their goal is to get the lowest score possible for O to win. Remember, X win is worth +1 and O's win is worth -1. And this is why it's called minimax. X turns means that X is maximizing, but here it is O's turn and they are minimizing their score. So now O has the options of +1 and 0, -1 and 0, and -1 and +1. O obviously wants to win, and they will pick a move with the lowest outcome, which in this case is going to be 0, -1, and -1, which is what they are going to pick and pass the score back up. And the process repeats again. X needs to pick either 0, -1, and -1. Well, technically yes, there isn't a 1, but remember, X is maximizing. So it is better to pick 0 because while it may result in a tie, it is still better than O winning the game. Now you might be hearing this and it is really cool in theory, especially when I watch it for the first time and trying to learn this. But what about in practice? It is pretty difficult to code, and if I try to explain how to code this, I don't think you will understand. But when I tried to code this thing, I found these 2 videos which will be extremely helpful for you to understand. Links are in the description, or you can check in the top right of the screen to find further information about the minimax algorithm and how to code it in tic-tac-toe. Unfortunately, I'm not going to show how to code this because I really don't know how to edit this, and I can't really explain it properly because I keep changing the code so much. But if you do want to know the final code of this tic-tac-toe game I made, I posted it on GitHub and it's pretty new and I plan to make more content over there, so stick around. And well, that's about how I made tic-tac-toe game in 2 days. The background is just me playing the game and showcasing it. It was pretty a hectic one, lots of researching, debugging, even though I know it's only a simple tic-tac-toe game, but I'm looking forward to do more projects in the future involving C. Thank you so much for watching this, and if you do like this video, you can press the like button of course. If you do want to continue to support me, you can always drop me a sub, and if you do have critics of what I did in the video that's incorrect, you can always express your thoughts in the comment section below so I can improve in the future video. I'm sorry that this took a while, and I'm sorry that I didn't explain this the way I wanted to, because this video is just simply for me to share to you guys how I did this. There are many different ways to code tic-tac-toe and you don't have to follow me, but I just want to simply share how I did this tic-tac-toe game as a first time, as a beginner. Okay, bye, me sign off.